with authority. Aloha!
Welcome to the most muscles-in podcast in Bay Area sports. Welcome to ABC 7 Sports
With authority.
You are inside the ABC 7 Sports department. We have a heavy-hitting episode today, Larry Beal.
Back from the beach. By the way, I think all of these podcasts should originate from the beach.
I agree.
Any beach. I'd pick Waikiki. We could do Santa Cruz. We could do Long Beach. Anything with a beach in it, I'm down for that. But little did I think that we'd be talking about the Giants and playoffs. Playoffs in the same sentence, but here we are. Is it fool's gold? We will delve into that. Giants streaking. The A's have actually been hotter, as my man here who likes to wear the green and gold underwear often reminds me. When have the A's had a better duo than the Mats? I'm gonna. You didn't know I was gonna bring this up.
They call me Jose.
Yeah. And I'm Mark. Or it could be silk robes and kimonos.
Yes, that's a great duo, actually.
We have a special guest. We're gonna start bringing in guests. A world champion, and if things go as I hope, he will choke out Casey Pratt on the videotape. It's Ryan Darth Bader. He is the Bellator heavyweight and light heavyweight champion, and he's got a big bout coming up in San Jose.
Bader 2 belts. Here in moments.
Yes. Before he gets choked out, well, Casey might try to hypnotize him because he's been known to hypnotize chickens. That is a true story.
It's a fact.
I would not lie about that. And did you participate in that old age FaceApp challenge? And if you did, don't be surprised when Comrade Putin comes knocking on your door because it's a Russian app. What are you doing?
You're giving them your stuff. You're
handing over.
Yeah, don't do it.
Your intellectual property, assuming we have any intellectual property to hand over. You want to talk some baseball?
I cannot believe that we are approaching Major League Baseball's trade deadline, and we are even fathoming the San Francisco Giants as buyers? Really?
Well, that's the question, because is this fool's gold? I mean, as we tape, the Giants are on a winning streak, so are the A's. And in fact, the Giants just came off what for them is like a historic run, a 4-game sweep in Colorado. That's been their house of horrors forever. But now they're inching up towards 500, and because the rest of the National League is so bad, they're now in legitimate wild card playoff contention. They're never going to catch the Dodgers for the division. That's a whole other story. But if they can keep this going, then they have a very interesting question and or dilemma to deal with, which is, we assumed the first couple of months of the season, this team is terrible. We're not going to call it rebuild. They wouldn't call it rebuild. But it was a retooling with Farhan Zaidi, the man who's in charge, basically a kind of a churn and burn operation where you bring guys in, you give them a week and a half or whatever, and if they can't get it done, then you just spin them out and you move on to the next guy. But when you look at Kevin Pillar, Alex Dickerson, Mike Yastrzemski, Austin Slater, Donovan Solano, and I know you believe in Stephen Vogt.
Absolutely.
Suddenly these guys are hitting machines, and the Giants are sort of contending at this point. And so when your plan going into the season is, well, we're going to have to sell off Madison Bumgarner.
Yep.
Obviously, you got Will Smith, who at one point in the season was perfecto, closing games.
He's an all-star this year.
He's an all-star. He's our only all-star. So you're thinking, all right, we're going to sell these guys off. Now you start to ponder, if we could get that second wild card and we trot out Madison Bumgarner in a one-game playoff, do you want to throw your whole season in on that, or do you want to go, no, let's get a hold of ourselves. We're here to rebuild. We're here to reset. Who cares about this is not a team that's going to be a World Series contender. So let's not get delusional. Let's enjoy the mini run of success, but not go crazy and assume that this is a team that's really going to do a lot of damage in the National League playoffs.
Yeah, so I'm going to paint two different scenarios. One, the Giants are absolutely in the hunt for the wild card right now. I cannot believe that as a fact. As you pointed out, the NL is extremely weak. A one-game playoff with Mad Bum and potentially Johnny Cueto ready to come out of the pen.
Well, come on now. Come on.
And then you got your all-star closer, Will Smith.
No, we've traded him already by then.
I don't think you have. So
in
this scenario,
definitely.
you haven't. You're keeping him. So what's crazy to me is as the Giants' run of success started, you slowly started hearing the drumbeat of maybe we don't sell, maybe we don't sell, maybe we don't sell, maybe we buy. And I was like rolling my eyes. I couldn't roll my eyes any harder. I was like, this is flat out ridiculous. Like, this is just preposterous. There's no way the Giants should be buying or even thinking they're competing. I can't believe I'm saying this, but it's starting to look like a situation where, yeah, they could absolutely win the wild card. And you have Bruce Bochy in his final year with the Giants. And it's like, wow, maybe they shouldn't. Now, I will tell you, I've been a big proponent of selling. I've been saying it to you for 3 years. The Giants need to sell. They need to sell. They need to sell. They need to tear it down. Clean house. Get rid of everybody. They have no farm. The vets they do have, while they did right by them and kept them around, all need to go. I mean, it's just it's a team that has not been very good. They need to do something. So while I see the intrigue in buying, I see the intrigue in going for it, which doesn't seem completely crazy to me right now.
Well, hold on a second.
I will.
You completely flipped your position
I'm going
on
to
this?
tell you that I think they could make a run, but I don't think they should. And I'm
Okay.
going to tell you why. Look at this. The Giants' record, as we record, is 47-49.
Right.
They are in contention as a losing team with a run differential of -38, even after this incredible surge they had, including a 19-2 victory.
Yeah.
The Giants last year were awful, right?
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah. Worse
A
year
team
before.
that was so bad they had to bring in Farhan Zaidi and clear house and think about selling. Guess what their record was on this day? Last year, in a season in which they lost 89 games,
Well,
their record was
47-49.
Their record was 50-48 on this day last year.
Well, but they were hanging around 500 for most of the season, and then
Yeah.
they just had this epic collapse in the last 6-7 weeks of the campaign. So I don't know that this is an apples-to-apples comparison because so much of the personnel is different.
But they lost 98 the year before that. So you lose 98, you lose 89 the next year.
Yeah.
You're a losing team with a negative run differential. And last year they even had a better record at this point, and you weren't at that point saying, this is the year, let's go for the wild card. I mean, I just don't think that the Giants going for it is to the benefit of the team in their future. And that's the issue at hand. So they really need to take a hard look. Now, if you're the Giants ownership, do you sit down with Bruce Bochy and say, Boch, I know it's your last year. I know you're done after this. But what is your honest opinion? Do we go all in or do we punt?
Well, I think you owe it to Bruce Bochy to ask his opinion about the appropriate course of action, but he's not going to have the final say in it. Farhan Zaidi's going to have the final say, and you can't become the prisoner of the moment because you're enthralled by this winning streak or the fact that they're actually playing good baseball after being miserable the first couple of months of the season. You have to look at the long game here, and the long game says over the course of 162 games, Alex Dickerson and Pilar and all these guys that we never heard of, frankly, a few months ago, are not likely to keep this up the entire way. So, okay, we've got lightning in a bottle right now. How long does it last? Let's enjoy it. To me, I would say the Giants' season would be a success if they finished above 500. I'm not expecting them to contend for a playoff spot. I think it would be foolish to really go all in on a playoff spot. I think the only way that you secure a future that's positive going forward is you have to get some prospects back from Madison Bumgarner that are worth something. Will Smith, in any scenario, whether you think you're going for it or not, he's got to be traded. And it's not because he's bad. It's because he's really, really good, despite a couple
he
of
has a little
slip-ups.
value now, especially after an all-star appearance.
So, okay, if the Dodgers need a bullpen, I don't even have a problem with sending him to the Dodgers. The whole goal is not to try to just get into a one-game playoff scenario this year. The idea is we got to rebuild this thing for the next 5 years.
Exactly.
So, would Madison Bumgarner be a part of that? I mean, there's a scenario where you could rent him to another team, get prospects back, and kind of do the Aroldis Chapman deal that the Yankees
then
did.
buy him right back
buy him
after
right
the fact.
back. But that would require you making a commitment of probably $25 to $30 million a year for 5 years. Are you willing to go $150 million or something like that to re-secure the services of Madison Bumgarner? I'm saying enjoy the ride while it lasts right now. And if you can contend, you hang around, but you're still in the process of churning and burning and finding out. I mean, if Alex Dickerson was going to be a major league regular, it probably would have happened at this point. So while he's hot and teams have not figured him out, and the rest of this group, I mean, Pillar's playing great defense also. So he's going to be, I would think, a long-term Giant.
He's a good player. No, he has a track record. He didn't just come out of nowhere. That was a good acquisition.
No, but I think it would be foolish to, imagine a scenario where this Giants team, barring some major acquisition, is going to contend seriously in the playoffs.
I agree with that sentiment. You don't mortgage your entire future for a one-game playoff.
No.
And maybe if you get into the first round, you're still going up against a much better team. You look at the way the Giants are constructed, they are not going to win the way they used to win. You can't win on your elite pitching and then just scraping together enough big hits. I mean, this is a team that doesn't have, despite the surge recently, the power to win in today's MLB with the more symmetrical aerodynamic ball that they insist isn't juiced. I mean, you look at a team like the Oakland A's, they have, 6 players with 15 home runs already? The Giants have 0.
Only took 11 minutes for you to get to
0.
your Oakland A's.
I mean, but the A's are more obvious, so we don't even really need to talk to them at this point. They're supposed to be good. They are good, and they're going to go to the playoffs. Maybe as a wild card.
Well, hold on a second.
They're a playoff team.
Hold on a second.
They are a playoff team.
They're
expected
occupy
to be
the
a playoff
second
team.
wild card position as
they'll
we
be fine.
speak.
This is their
Are they
MO.
catching the Astros for the division?
They're getting closer, but the Astros are very good, and the Astros just got back George Springer, and they're about to get back Carlos Correa, and Altuve's missed time. I think the Astros are one of the best teams in all of baseball. I think the A's route is going to have to be the wild card, but they have a lot of talent. And you got to look at what the A's have done right now, not to hijack the conversation, but they've done this with almost nothing from Chris Davis lately.
Oh, that's true.
Which is unbelievable. So if he figures it out, look out. But I think the Giants have a very, very tough decision to make. Internally, they might want to take this obscenely large payroll and get something out of it. The Giants really care a lot about perception, but I just don't think they can bite. I think they got to sell.
I think it would be similar to a few years ago with the Fool's Gold, where the Cubs won the World Series and the Giants pushed them in the playoffs, and if they had the bullpen, they would have come through. But that led them to the disastrous Mark Melancon acquisition, which seemed like a bright idea at the time, and you could easily have talked yourself into that whole deal. But that further delayed the inevitable rebuild, which is where we are right now. I don't think a few good weeks of baseball is any good reason to stop what the big picture is telling you, and that is, look, we still have Brandon Belt, who's a sub-20 home run guy every year. Buster Posey, what is he, sitting on 5 home runs? Brandon Crawford he had one monster game, which made up like a better performance than his entire month of June. Where we had the 3 homers and 9 RBIs in one doubleheader. But you still have some of that, which is an older team that is not likely to keep this going for the next 2-3 months. So I just think you've got to make the hard decision. You got to say, aloha, Bumgarner, we love you. But that is with one caveat. You've got to get serious prospects back.
Absolutely.
You can't get some single-A dudes and some random guys. You've got to get legitimate guys that are either ready or very close to ready at the major league level. I'm not giving away a guy who could be a stud in the postseason for just some rando off the street. Now, Will Smith, a little bit of a different situation because the Giants, they've got enough guys in the bullpen, and it's not like we're expecting them to be playing these usually meaningful games in the month of September.
Yeah, and I think that, if anything, what this run has done, I know it's excited the Giants fans, but it's given Farhan Zaidi a chance to say, look, maybe I'm not going to give you Madison Bumgarner for nothing. I could keep Madison Bumgarner and be a major thorn in your side, NL competitor.
So it's a useful negotiating
tactic. It's
tactic.
exactly that, if anything, a tactic.
You know what it's really helped? It's helped me in our Meatball Paul bet and our Giants versus A's battle.
Yeah,
that we
except
made.
the A's have been just as good over
I
the
know,
stretch.
but here's the thing. Because the Giants, 47-49 as we tape, the A's 55-41. So you're 8 games up. You spotted me 15 wins. If the Giants didn't get seriously hot,
you'd be dead right now.
I'd be dead right now.
You'd be knee-deep in marinara.
Yeah, the bet is I eat 2 meatball subs at the same time, one sitting,
yes,
if I lose the bet. Some people would say that's the winner's share, but we look at it differently.
No,
Joey Chestnut would say that's you're winning.
You're winning. No, so Larry, just to retrace on this, is an incredibly healthy eater. So the fact that he'd be sitting here eating 2 meatball subs at once, maybe on this very podcast, to me, is extremely satisfying. And if the Giants didn't go on this run, like, we would already probably be talking about settling this bet.
I would be negotiating.
It would be over.
I'd be going Farhan Zaidi on you right now. What if we throw in a bag of chips and just make it 1 sub?
Yeah.
What if producer Leonard wants half a sub?
What if we give him a meatball? We'll roll it over Lady and the Tramp style like this.
Yeah. So anyway, I think we're in relative agreement on the Giants situation.
You got to sell.
As tempting as it is, at least you have a couple of pieces that can help you in the long run if you get some quality players back. And you can't just fall for the fool's gold right now and expect that this hot streak is going to continue. We should talk a little bit more about your A's, because I was thinking about, you put in one of our scripts the other day, instead of back-to-back Jacks, Matt to Matt Jacks,
yes,
Chapman and Olson. And in your opinion, since you're like our Billy Bean here, with the green and gold, is it the best A's duo since the Bash Brothers?
You know what? In Matt Chapman and Matt Olson, you have 2 very young, extremely talented, powerful guys that both play gold glove defense. That is as well-rounded a package that I think you're ever going to find. And now I know the A's had the big 3. That was obviously a trio, which was amazing. You had MVP Miguel Tejada and 6-time Gold Glover Eric Chavez back in the early. So I would venture to say that if they can find a way to keep these guys around, this could be the best duo the A's have ever had. Yes.
Ever?
Ever? I think Matt
Canseco
Chapman
and McGuire?
Well, you know I have a soft spot in my heart for
Asterisk.
Jose,
Hey,
but
and I'm Mark.
there are some certain factors that we might need to
you want
address
to start
if
quoting
passages
passages from Bud Selig's
I
new
don't
book that's
know
coming
if we
out?
want to go down that road with them.
All
But
right, well, let me give you.
well, they also had Ricky. I mean, come on.
Well, I'm just talking about duos.
Ricky was better. Yeah, but if you take a duo,
Cespedes and Donaldson, they were pretty good.
They were very good. But I think you have longevity in Chapman and Olson. And I actually think Matt Chapman, you look at him, he's got over 20 homers. He's a platinum glover, not even a gold glover. He is playing himself into MVP consideration. Absolutely. He will be an MVP candidate, and possibly for many years. He is turning into everything we kind of wanted out of Eric Chavez that he never fully became.
Here's a good question, because the A's have him under team control for a while. What is Matt Chapman's next contract going to look like?
It's going to be astronomical.
Because you know where Harper and Trout are. I mean, $300 million is like the new benchmark. That's the new low for the elite level player.
Yes, and he's quickly getting up there. I don't even want to think about what it's worth, and I hope for the A's sake that they can have a Howard Terminal situation figured out in time to get somebody like Matt Chapman and keep him. This could be a transformative type player for the Oakland Athletics franchise. He's that good.
You still didn't really answer my question.
How much?
No, well, no, the first question. You didn't answer that question either. But you're so elusive.
My answer is 30%. There's your I don't know what answer.
Which duo was the best A's duo?
I don't want to use recency bias for my answer, but I think when you look at potential long-term implications, I think it could absolutely be Olson and Chapman. Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. Because There's been a lot of great duos and even trios, but I'm gonna take Chappie and Olson because I think the future is incredibly bright with them right now.
All right, they're doing a lot of bashing. Speaking of
Yes.
bashing, I think it's time for our guest. All that glitters is real gold. The championship belt and the big reveal. Ryan
Chapman's here.
Bader.
What's going on, guys?
Why don't you hang on to this? Your belt is heavy,
Yeah,
man.
it's heavy, huh? I don't want to hang on. We'll put it on the ground.
It's on the ground. Wow.
The
Well, you
belt
have
is
so
work.
many of them. I
Yes.
mean,
Have a couple of them. You know, there we have the heavyweight and light heavyweight, but I have a cool one. It was the heavyweight Grand Prix that had everybody's name on the side of it engraved, and that one's pretty special.
And you captured that belt in a special way against a legend.
Yeah, I came up. You know, I was a wrestler, and I always watched Fedor and Pride, and then to be able to compete against him and do it in a Grand Prix style tournament and do it for the second belt, and then on top of that, friends and family were there. Walk out there, it's the national anthem they played right before, the Russian anthem. Then people started chanting USA, USA. Then it started to be a national thing.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, here we go. And then go out there in 35 seconds, I ended up knocking him out. And it was like one of those, holy crap moments where it's pretty, it doesn't get any bigger than that in your career. It's kind of the pinnacle, right? As far as the build up, the two belts, beating, a legend in the sport, one of your idols, and then doing it in LA, close to my hometown, Phoenix, and friends and family there is a really special moment.
now you're a similar age to me. I grew up watching those like famous Fedor YouTube videos.
Yeah.
I mean, you gotta know what I'm talking about, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, like for me, it was kind of surreal. And the whole training camp, I was like, all right, don't put him on a pedestal.
Yeah.
You're better than him. You're this and that. And I'd have to check myself here and there because you start getting in your own head. And then being across the cage from him, you're like, that's Fedor.
It's gotta be
And
surreal.
he just went through that tournament. He
Yeah.
beat Chael Sonnen and Frank Mir in a buzzsaw fashion, like knocked him out.
Yeah.
Beat him silly. And I knew going into that fight that I was going to be in a buzzsaw right away. It wasn't one of those, he doesn't feel you out. He just comes at you and tries to knock your head off. So that's intimidating, and especially from me watching him do that to everybody, and so to go out there and, I was trying to gauge that distance where I'm like, all right, he's going to throw. All right, that's the line I got to be at where he's not going to throw at me, but I think I can get him. And so you can see it in his eyes. He was getting ready, and all of a sudden he was, I'm like, all right, there it is. And so I threw a weird left hook and ended up catching him right on the button and putting him down. And then when I saw him fall, I was like, this could be it right now. And I jumped on him, and I hit him with a couple punches. And like, wow, it's over. And a lot of hard work went into that. That was a year of going through that tournament, and stepping out of my comfort zone and going up to heavyweight. And going fighting King Mo, Matt Mitrione, who was a big heavyweight, and then, facing the legend in Fedor.
I mean, how surreal, how shocking, how just after all the buildup, the whole camp, just knowing who he is to just like, 30 seconds, okay.
Yeah, I mean, when
that's crazy.
I got to share the octagon with, the guy sitting over here, and, my brother-in-law, my coaches, and my wife was in, my parents were in the stands, and friends and family. Walking out of that, being in that cage right after was surreal, and then walking to the locker room after, and it was kind of, every fight's a huge weight lifted off your shoulder, and then you get back there. I had 3 belts laid on the couch.
Yeah.
That we laid out, and took a shower and came out, had friends and family in the room, and it was just a cool experience, not only for myself but the family and I'm glad I'm able to do something where I can bring everybody together like that.
Yeah.
You're really unique in that you're bouncing back and forth between light heavyweight and heavyweight. So light heavy is 205 and heavyweight you fight around 225. How difficult is that to go up and down and make weight? And you were telling me earlier, but that the night before you're thinking, okay, I got to cut 10 pounds, and that's got to be some pressure involved with that.
Yeah, and we'll see. I haven't been this heavy and gone back down, So usually 205, I walk around maybe 230. I'm a good 10 pounds heavier than that. But walk around 230. I'm usually get down to 222 the week of. I leave. We go to wherever the fight's at. And then I'm watching it. I'm drinking a lot of water, actually, tricking my body to thinking it's getting too much, and I start watching my food and working out hard every day, and then the night up, my weight's usually down, but then I put on plastics. We crank up the heat in the little workout room to about 85, and do about 45 minutes of little light boxing, moving around, going hard for a second, and I get 10 pounds off in about 45 minutes.
10
pounds of water.
Minutes?
Yep, and then I'll usually take a little break, and I'll go in the sauna, get a couple more off, and then I'll go kind of refuel a little bit, put a little bit of water in my body, no salt, no sodium, eat a little bit. I'm not really that hungry. I'm just pretty much thirsty at that point. And then I'll try to do a hot bath at night and get 2 more pounds off. You can do that in about 10 minutes.
Wait a second. You take a hot bath and you lose 2 pounds?
So a hot bath, meaning you get it as hot as you can. If you move, it's almost too much, right? And 2 pounds comes off in 10 minutes, and you get out and it takes it out of you. And then I try to get a little bit of water in, and then I try to sleep. And you're dreaming that you woke up and you pounded a Gatorade, and and you wake up. You're
dreaming about
Gatorade. You're dreaming about electrolytes and water.
Oh,
and then I wake up, and then I usually hit the bath again because I'm usually like 2 over, and so I don't really want to put on plastics and move around. So a couple pounds in the bath, and then we're able to go weigh in the morning. And so we go do that, and then it's refueling. You have 24 hours to put it back on.
You got to do a video. Never mind all the fighting stuff.
I know, right?
This is the weight loss technique that America wants and needs.
I don't think they need it.
The hot, America needs it.
Yeah, I know they need it, but you can't sustain that. You feel like crap. But
don't tell them that.
Yeah.
It's the hot bath diet, and you're guaranteed to lose 2 pounds. The heavyweight champ says
it's like hot yoga, but
Have you tried Bikram yoga?
I've done. Yeah, I have.
That's brutal.
That is brutal. I was like, oh, I'll go in there and kill it. And I was like, and I'm not overly flexible anyway. Whoo. It's like, how much more time we got?
Yeah, it's a 90-minute
15 minutes,
class.
Yeah. The burn sets in. Let me ask you this. When did you realize that this was your calling? Obviously, you made the right choices, but how did you get to this point? Because I always find kind of the origination story fascinating.
Yeah, so I'm from Reno, Nevada. I came down to ASU on a wrestling scholarship, Arizona State. Wrestled, got my degree. Was thinking about going to law school, and I was like, was kind of like, where do I go? But I was kind of burnt out. I was a 2-time All-American in wrestling, but I've been an athlete since I was 7 years old, and I really didn't want to. If I didn't want to go to the gym, I didn't want to, because I was always, you got to be here, you got to be training, and so I got a sales job, and I did that for a little while. And immediately, I missed competing and working towards something.
Okay, yeah.
And so I had friends in our ASU team. There was Cain Velasquez, who was a former UFC heavyweight champ from San Jose. CB Dalloway, Aaron Simpson. Go down the line, and then they knew they were going to go train and fight. I didn't really. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to go do some boxing in this MMA gym and Muay Thai, grappling, just keep in shape. But I kind of knew in the back of my mind, if I'm doing that, I'm going to try a fight. And so I go in there, and they realize, D1 wrestlers are pretty good, and they're beating up on these other guys. And so me and CB and I, we were doing well in practice, and they're like, "You want to fight?" And we're like, "Yeah, sure." And so we fought on the Indian reservation in Arizona, and my first opponent was like 185 pounds. Yeah. Wore a rash guard, had long hair. Yeah. And so we were all hitting mitts in the back, and we were kind of watching him through the curtain, and he was whipping his head, and his braid or whatever he had came and whipped him in his eye, and he was like, took a knee and he was down. No. So I was like, it was a good first fight to build confidence, and I went out there, and I've been going with D1 wrestlers my whole life, and going with somebody that really didn't know anything, it was a different world. I was like, wow, I could be really good at this. And it was one of those things where I had a job for a while I was training, while I was fighting. And then the opportunity came where, like, hey, we have a small monthly for you if you quit your job. And it was really nothing. I was racking up money on my credit card, just taking any fight I can get. And then I ended up getting on the Ultimate Fighter, winning that, and just kind of snowballed.
Yeah, that was your big break, right?
Yep, the Ultimate Fighter, getting on that and, getting out there and winning that definitely, I felt like I was king of the world for a second, and then realized I'm right back down to the bottom, of the UFC, you know.
I'm really envious because I would love to have a job where I get to punch people in the face for a living. The problem is they punch back.
Yeah, they do.
That kind of sucks.
I just love competing. I've done it my whole life, and I've been training my whole life. So for me, I've got other stuff going on, business-wise, but I still love going to the gym and training, 2 times a day, and I love having a goal to attain. I love having something on the horizon. When I don't have it, I feel kind of lost a little bit. So, I love to be like, all right, in 2 months, I'm fighting, Czech Congo, defending the heavyweight title, and the moment right after you win is one of the sweetest feelings ever. It's such a pressure relief, and you've worked so hard, you attained a goal, and you're like, all right, what's next?
What's the cheat meal after that? It's got to be a go-to, right?
I can't really eat all that much right when I'm kind of done that night.
Yeah.
We'll go in the back, and your stomach's weird the day of, nerves and all that. And so I usually have like a Coke.
Okay.
I don't really drink, Coke, Pepsi, whatever. And then kind of that night, whatever, the next day I get down on some tacos, and we'll drink some beers and all that. Usually my family's in town, and so we're all there, and so we stay another day and have fun and kind of celebrate together.
Then you're on to the next one, huh?
Then you're right back at it.
You mentioned coming up through the UFC, and you've taken a path. We'll see if it becomes more popular. I mean, this has not been the traditional way to come up, because for most guys, the UFC is the pinnacle.
Yep.
But you sort of made the right turn to go to Bellator, which, Scott Coker years ago started Strikeforce, which was very popular in San Jose. That got bought out, and now is running Bellator, and it's growing rapidly, and your rise is a part of it. So for the hardcore MMA people out there, can you talk us through the decision as to what made you decide to make that jump? Because it had to be something of a risk for you.
No, it definitely was. There's a time where I was kind of guaranteed a title shot also in the UFC. Go out and beat Rashad Evans. I was talking to Dana White on the phone. Well, I went and did it, and then I got jumped over for a guy that just lost by a KO in Alexander Gustafsson. So at that moment I was like, you know what? Like, if I'm not getting it now, I was like, I got to start thinking about something. And I ended up losing a fight, and at that moment I was like, I'm just gonna have fun with this. And I had 2 more fights left on my contract. I went out after that loss and got a great KO against a tough guy that was like top 5, and then beat Nogueira, who's legend in the sport. And when we signed that last fight, we signed it on a short notice, and they're like, oh yeah, we got to redo your contract too. And I was like, yeah, I'm not going to redo it. And they were kind of pissed about that, but went forward, and I've been talking to Bellator, we spoke to Bellator after that, and I just loved I loved the atmosphere. I loved what Scott Coker and Rich Hsu were saying, as far as they were open to different things, fighting at heavyweight, doing a tournament, going to Japan. So I came over, and Phil Davis was one of the first guys to leave, and he was top 3 in the UFC at that time, and he was there before, and so I fought him on my first fight for a championship. And so there was 2 top 5 guys in Bellator at the same time in the world, regardless of promotion, and so got to do that, defended it, got to come in and do the heavyweight tournament. So I've been enjoying it. And
you think it's a trend?
You're going to see more and more guys coming over. Mousasi, came over, and he was top 5 in the world, regardless of promotion. And you're going to continue to see that. Machida came over. Miles Jury just came over. I saw today. It's definitely going to be definitely a trend for sure.
You could fight anybody in the world, all-time MMA or wrestling. Who would your dream opponent be?
I would say Fedor.
Yeah,
which
right?
is crazy.
But
Yeah,
you already took care of him.
Took care of that. It would be one of the, I think the 3. It was either Dan Severn, Dan Henderson, Don Fry.
There you go.
So I grew up watching those guys are wrestlers, right? And they introduced me to the game, and I always rooted for them as being a wrestler when I was 7, 8 years old, and watching them when the first UFC tapes come out, and kind of thinking, well, I can maybe do this. I'm a wrestler. And then as I got older and watching Dan Henderson do it into his late 40s, and fighting for a world title in his last fight, at 48 years old or something like that, it's purely out of respect, just like Fedor was, but probably one of those guys.
Nice.
I saw an interview where you were saying your goal was to try to be the Michael Jordan of mixed martial arts. What would that be? What would you have to do to accomplish that?
I think the whole sport would have to be more of like cross promotion kind of stuff. With the UFC and Bellator, kind of coming together and doing some cross promotional fights. I have 2 belts there. It'd be against like a Cormier or John Jones. I think that's going to happen in the future. I think there are going to be those one-offs, and why not? You've seen it done with boxing. Obviously there's competition, and UFC feels that threat of Bellator. And so they don't want to give them any footing whatsoever.
Sure.
I don't think. But I do really believe that in the future there will be some cross-promotional fights.
I want to talk about the upcoming bout with Congo, because that's what you're here for. And that's in September, early September.
Yeah, September 7th, SAP Center. It'll be on, this one will be on DAZN, the DAZN app. And so what you got to do, you got to, I think that's where everything's kind of going. So they have a ton of boxing. They have all the Canelo fights. You just download the app. It's a monthly service, and then you can kind of go from there. I'm sure they have a free trial. But yeah, so Chet Congo, he's been around forever. He's won 8 fights in a row. I obviously won the tournament, and I'm defending the belt for the first time, and it's a interesting matchup for sure. He's going to bring it. He's great with the stand-up. I feel like I'm well-rounded, and definitely take him out.
Well,
Nice.
thanks for coming in.
Thank you, boss.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, we didn't get into it, but family man, multi-champion, wrestler, MMA fighter. There's nothing you can't do. We really appreciate this.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, good luck. September the 7th. Don't
September
hurt
7th.
anybody around here, okay?
Not here.
Just try to restrain yourself.
I always do.
Ryan Bader puts people to sleep in conventional ways. Like my grandpa used to say, hit first and ask questions later.
That's where you get that.
Casey, that's pretty much my attitude most of the time. Facts not so important, but you have a more sophisticated approach, a more
do.
psychological approach.
Absolutely.
And I have mentioned this to a number of people, the fact that you claim to be able to hypnotize a chicken. And the first reaction is usually, what? What? Is there any proof that, have you ever seen him hypnotize a chicken? And I haven't seen you do it, but you
No.
showed me some videos where people have
Yes.
hypnotized chickens, and you've obviously spent a lot of time working on this.
Yes. Leonard, bring me the live chicken. Let's go. No chicken?
Sorry, I forgot that one.
Well, this podcast is over. No. So funny story. I don't know how it came up, but I told Larry one day I can hypnotize chickens. He absolutely didn't believe me. I demonstrated how you hypnotize a chicken, which makes no sense when you don't have a live chicken, Leonard. But one day, like, our boss's bosses were presenting me with a certain award, humble brag, and Larry goes ahead and mentions in front of not only our entire station, but the people in charge of our station and above that I hypnotize chickens,
Some Disney bosses.
which became a very awkward situation quickly. So here's the facts. If you get a chicken and you lay it on its side carefully and you draw a line just back and forth in front of the top of its beak in the dirt, or get like a piece of chalk on cement and just draw it back and forth across its head of its beak, that chicken will quickly enter a catatonic state where it is just laying there hypnotized out. And so I don't want to get into too much detail, but
whoa, you got me for a second.
yeah, I
was
got
watching
you, right?
the
He was
line.
out.
I was watching.
He was
the-
out. He was
oh,
watching
hold
the
on.
line. So one day I was at a party. This is back in like college days. And the
So was
house
the chicken
we were
drunk
at-
or were you drunk?
no
Maybe
comment.
both. Maybe both.
And the house we were at had a chicken coop, which actually now more and more people have chicken coops. My wife really wants us to get one, which could be a bad idea because I'll just have all the chickens laid out in the grass. Anyways, somebody told me this, that you can hypnotize a chicken. And I had the same reaction that Larry had. I was like, no, you can't hypnotize. That's ridiculous. So we get out this chicken from the coop. He lays it down. He draws the line in the dirt. And sure enough, the chicken's out.
Out cold.
Out cold. And I was just in complete and utter disbelief. So I was able to learn it and try it then too. The funniest part about the evening at first was after we hypnotized the chickens, we're like, okay, so like now what? Like, how do you wake up the chicken? Do you have to like snap or clap or just stomp by it? And we didn't know.
How do you wake
We
it
didn't
up?
know. We didn't know how to unhypnotize the chickens.
So what did you do?
We just put them back in the coop.
And waited for them to wake up?
And
could
they do.
still
They
be
come
there.
out. They do come out of it.
They come
They're
out
not,
of it.
And now they are McNuggets. No.
Oh.
So, anyways, they come out of it. They're fine. It's a funny thing. You can actually Google it. Search it on YouTube. You can hypnotize chickens. It's a random skill I learned at a party, and it's a hilarious trick if you actually have one. Gently, carefully lay the chicken down. Just draw a line in front of its beak. It doesn't hurt it at all. It just goes into a little catatonic state. It's absolutely hilarious.
Chicken coma.
Yes, absolutely. So while Ryan Bader has more dominant means of putting people to sleep, chickens, just draw a line, dirt or chalk.
Someday we got to get a camera out to your house.
And I don't have any chickens.
And what we'll
we just
find
need to
is-
get a chicken in
we'll
here.
Find I have turkeys in my backyard
Yeah,
at times.
yeah.
Does it work with a turkey? That was a little bigger bird
We could try.
and probably a lot feistier.
I think we would probably end up.
Scarred up.
Yeah, I think we'd be scarred up. But
All right.
maybe we'd have a Thanksgiving dinner arranged. That is your lesson, folks, on Hypnotizing Chickens, a podcast where you will learn everything. Is this one with authority?
Leonard, what do you have?
How am I supposed to go after hypnotizing a chicken? By the way, that's called tonic immobility, and it's actually a defense mechanism that most birds have
Why? How could that help you?
because it makes it's like playing dead. So 15 to 30 seconds and they will wake up.
Yes, exactly. That's what we learned.
What is it called again?
Tonic immobility. Tonic immobility.
So
yeah.
could-
It's
so
a state of paralysis.
Could the chicken voluntarily put themselves in tonic immobility?
Any type of threat.
So
that-
you just kind of
Yeah.
I give up.
Do you know the fainting goats? Same kind of thing.
Interesting.
So it's that same
okay.
thing.
Well,
That's good
interesting.
knowledge,
wow,
Leonard.
This is very good science lesson.
There you
here.
go. Speaking of science, perfect. This is perfect segue into what I want to ask you guys. So obviously, moon landing anniversary coming
Yes.
up. Big deal in my opinion, just because I'm like a big nerd and I had a professor whose dad worked on it. Actually created the fuselage with a bunch of people, and she had a picture in her office of him standing next to the Apollo mission module. Anyways, first question, because it's going to be a two-parter.
Uh-oh.
First question
Yeah.
on
Let me
you
get my
guys.
pen ready. It feels like an exam.
Do we have to buzz in?
Is
You
this,
have to buzz now.
is this multiple choice or?
First question. Do you guys believe we actually landed on the moon?
Oh, man, we were just talking about this.
Yes.
This is great. You go first.
Well, this is interesting because my grandmother was born in Odessa, Russia in 1901. I distinctly remember as a kid when the Apollo program was taking off and we would see pictures on the news of the moon landing and she was like 100% adamant. That's fake. There's no way we're on the moon. Don't believe that, Larry. It's completely fabricated. It's impossible. I mean, look, common sense. We're here. The moon's up there. And it's just not theoretically possible. It's just the whole thing is on a Hollywood lot. Kids, just go play ball. Don't worry about that. But I certainly believe it. Remember, Steph Curry, was it like last year, mentioned
Steph
on a
Curry
podcast?
got in a lot of trouble
did
for
he get
claiming
into some
that
hot
they didn't
water?
land on the moon.
And got actually an invitation from astronauts to go to Houston and see Mission Control
Which
and
I
all
think
that.
he did end up talking to them and
he
coming
did.
around on
He
that
did.
point.
So yeah, no, I believe that we did land on the moon. How about you?
So I am going to play the antagonist role here, and while I do believe we did land on the moon, I will paint a little bit of skepticism on the situation.
Yeah,
What I have in my hand is an Apple iPhone.
yeah.
There is enough technology in this phone to probably beat and outlast anything that was on those Apollo crafts that landed on
No
the moon.
question.
So, answer me this. Why, with subpar, far inferior technology, were we able to get to the moon and land and put humans on the moon to walk?
Right.
And now, in the days where we have things like this, and the cameras and we have technology vastly superior. why have we not been back? If it was that easy to
What
get
if I could
there?
answer that question for
Why
you?
There
have we
have
not
been.
been
We
back?
have been back.
We've actually landed several times. There have been 12 men on the surface of the moon.
Not in a long time.
No, and the reason is because the actual NASA used to build a spaceship every single time. Like that's how they would do the shuttle. Every single time they would build it from scratch. But after a while, to save money, they started reusing them. And whenever you reuse something, you can never get it back to its original form. So after a few explosions and a few tragedies, they decided that anything outside of just doing an orbit was too dangerous because the reentry would be a problem. And that means they would have to spend more money, which they didn't have a budget. Their budget continued to get slashed. And then people just stopped caring about going to the moon.
Yes, but there's Mars now.
I know,
Why
but-
can't we
but-
get to Mars with much better equipment?
Well, but see, that's the whole
That's the-
premise behind SpaceX, and now Jeff Bezos has got a space company. It's all been privatized because the government has sucked the money out of NASA. So we're kind of retooling. We're shooting way past the moon.
Yeah, we gotta
and
get
we're going
somewhere
to Mars.
else.
I mean, they're talking about colonizing Mars. I actually did an interview with somebody from the Exploratorium, and they've got a whole bunch of events in conjunction with the 50th anniversary. But they're talking about now using the moon as kind of your
Base
space
of
station.
operations,
Yeah, base
yeah.
of operations. Now the moon.
But then you'd have to land there again first.
Well, yeah, but you,
Which isn't hard,
yeah,
actually.
no, and
Well,
the moon is
not
only
anymore.
3 days away. We could get there in
Yeah.
3 days.
Let's leave now.
Mars.
The next
Mars.
podcast will be on the moon.
Oh,
Yes.
no, that would be very cool if we could pull that off. We have a hard enough time at the beach. But anyway, what's part 2 of your question?
Okay, so the second one. This one goes a little bit deeper into the crazy.
Yeah.
Do you guys believe there's aliens?
Wow.
Yeah, you thought I was going to go all the way left on that one, did you?
I would say that the universe is far larger than any of us can even begin to comprehend. And to legitimately believe that this planet is the only one that holds intelligent life, it seems kind of far-fetched to me, but I don't think that there's like little green men that have made it to Earth. And I love this whole thing about storming Area 51, by the way, which is awesome. I think Area 51 can be easily explained in that, you know, at the time they were developing high-tech planes and weaponry, and they didn't want anybody to know about it. So all the stuff that came out of Area 51 was probably just highly secretive military installments. But yeah, I think there's got to be life somewhere else on this planet, or not this planet, this universe. I don't think we've met it yet, though.
So I have an old friend who literally is a rocket scientist and works down at Stanford. And this is a question that I've repeatedly asked. My 2 questions of him were about cold fusion. If you remember, probably 20 years ago, cold fusion was an idea that was floated by Fleischmann and Pons, I believe. And this was going to be a new way to revolutionize nuclear energy. Right now, we have the old fusion. Well, this is
Old
turning into a
fusion versus
science.
cold fusion.
Basically, with cold fusion, you could use less energy, and it was a cleaner way to do it. And these guys allegedly came up with a formula that would allow cold fusion to happen. And I remember when I asked him, and he just laughed, and he said, "No, these guys are idiots. They just can't do that." And sure enough, a few months later, all of their work was debunked.
Oh.
And they
Well, that's no good.
Yeah. So anyway, I had asked him about aliens, life. Have we ever been visited? And he said that because of the vast differences, just the mileage involved between us and all these other galaxies that are out there, it would just take too long unless you had kind of a Star Trek-like wormhole where you could, pop out of another galaxy or universe and into ours. And it's just not really, given physics as we understand it in our, system, our solar system, not possible. But I think it would be naive of us to think we can't possibly be the smartest creatures out there.
We've proven that
we can't.
with every podcast.
I'm hoping that we're not.
I really hope we're not.
I really
No,
hope we're not.
I hope
also.
we're not either.
Just look at. I mean.
Actually, I hope we are, because if it comes to battle, we need to win this one.
Oh.
We need to
Oh
win
no!
this
If there's
one.
a battle, we're done.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
not
no.
happening.
But it's interesting because I mentioned Elon Musk, and a lot of people have speculated
That he's an alien?
no.
Oh.
Well,
That would
but he
make
doesn't
sense.
sleep a lot.
I don't either.
But that we are in a simulation,
Oh, yes.
and that we're really just in
Okay, I think we're going down a rabbit hole here.
in a matrix that was set up by
Yes.
far superior beings.
They're just harvesting us for our energy like the Matrix.
It could be something like that.
You know
anyway,
what, though? I remember, this might not be an actual fact, Leonard could correct me, but there are more stars in the sky than there are grains of sand on the world's beaches. So to say that we are only ones out there is ridiculous.
yeah, I've heard that so many times, and
I think
just
that's a Neil deGrasse Tyson original.
I think it just can't be possible. Just go to any beach. There can't be that many more stars than grains
could
of
be.
sand. I don't.
Let's dive.
That I don't believe.
Let's dive deeper into more conspiracy theories
Okay.
since we're on this track
yes,
right now.
yes.
News of the day.
All right, people. The human race.
Oh, yes.
They're actually quite predictable. But did you participate in this week's latest fad? The FaceApp Old Age Challenge. Leonard?
Yes, I did, and I have no regret.
Not today. When
Yes.
Comrade Putin recruits you or decides he doesn't want you.
He might have
Oh,
looked
he
at
would
your
decide
photo,
he
yeah,
doesn't want me
looked
real
at
quick.
Leonard's
I can't
camera
run
roll,
very far, so it doesn't help
And he's
it
like,
much.
nah, I'm good.
Anyway, this is similar to the 10-year challenge that was
Yeah.
out there a while ago where everybody's uploading their photos. And it's kind of a neat trick or toy where it takes your photo and then it, like, I want to be older. Like, I spend every day trying to avoid that. But it then makes you, what is it, 20, 30, 40, 50 years older,
Yeah.
so you see what everybody looks
Oh,
like.
old Leonard.
Wow, old Leonard. You got to post
You
that.
got to
You
post
have
that
to post
on. Yeah,
that.
that's going in the podcast.
No.
We won't show you young Leonard, but you'll just get to see old Leonard,
Now-
and you'll have to reverse engineer that image.
Now, you and I had the exact same thought at the
Exactly.
exact same time the moment that this became a thing. And that was...
I looked at it. I immediately thought, this is a massive data grab. Everybody is willingly sending their photos to a company of which they know nothing about, and they're taking them all and they're using them. And then a couple hours later, we actually saw a tweet. I think it was Michelle Steele of ESPN that pulled up the company page. What is the company called?
Wireless Lab.
And they are based out of Russia, and part of the privacy policy that you're agreeing to when you send it is saying that they can take the photos in your camera roll and basically use them for whatever they want. And I think about the way that they can take all this facial recognition technology or even apply it to stuff like deep fakes where they're like
For sure.
creating videos of people saying things they never even said, or accessing your camera roll, and you're losing not only data but possibly sensitive images that they can be used for compromise. I don't trust it for a second. This podcast is really
I thought we were doing a sports podcast.
I don't know what's
We
going
got
on.
way
I
off
don't
the
trust
deep
it.
end.
But you see guys like, let's bring it back to sports. Steph Curry was doing it. All these famous people were posting all their pictures of FaceApp. Almost every prominent athlete was doing it. And I just think you're willingly giving people way too much information as we sit here on Facebook
Now, there
and
was
other sites.
There was one writer, and I forget which blog it was on, who said that the app was trying to grab all of the pictures, all of the
Interesting.
photos on his phone. The question that I would have is, once they get access to your phone, who's to say that they're just limiting what they take to your photos? Leonard, they could be taking all of your sensitive passwords and information that you have stored on that $1,500 phone of yours.
Take it.
They already have this podcast.
Leonard
And
nudes.
all of its data.
Leonard's nudes.
Oh,
Oh, my
no.
goodness. Oh, it's
You'll
going to be
really
out there.
want to see those
Take 'em.
after you see
Vladimir Putin.
old Leonard.
Vladimir Putin's going to pass out when he gets a
Oh,
look at some of this
no.
stuff. But if you're a star person
Mm-hmm.
and, you know,
Maybe you have some suggestive
some
photos.
photos of an Instagram friend of yours or whatever. Oh my! I don't think you want to do this. The one thing I'll say that's good about this, well, I just as a lifestyle, I'm not tempted. I don't care what everybody else is doing. I don't. But what's happened with social media is everybody feels the need to be amongst the sheep and join in whatever the hot fad, whatever the fad is. It doesn't matter if it's the ice bucket challenge or the 10-year challenge or the old face challenge, whatever it is. People cannot resist because they want the likes, they want the clicks, they want their friends to say. I would love just shut all these things down for like 2 weeks and let's do a reset where you can't post to Instagram anymore or Facebook
Yes.
or Twitter for 2 weeks. Just we'll do a deep cleanse, Leonard, and get you right. So you don't feel compelled to give Mr. Putin all of your stuff because you want to look like an old man.
You know what's funny is that every weekend I turn off all my devices anyways. I honestly, I posted that one on Instagram, but it was only because I was trying to post something I haven't posted in ages. So I just wanted to post something.
All right. Well, you know what? I think we have a new challenge.
What's that?
Before we shut it all down, let's start a new fad where like all the sheep can just get in on it, right? Like, subscribe, follow the podcast. I think that's a great fad. Everybody should be doing it. It should be a race to see how many people do it. And we will not take any of your data. We'll just take that sweet, sweet sponsorship dollar, right?
I think
that's what we need.
All of us in this room can get behind that.
Yeah. So, I mean, right now, if you're listening on iTunes, we're also available on YouTube. You can see all this nonsense, which is just way too much. You also could get us on SoundCloud, Spotify. We're also on Google. We're everywhere. Google Play.
Yeah. If they don't go for this, we've got to come up with the stupid app challenge that automatically subscribes them to the podcast.
Yes. You send us a picture of you, you hit subscribe, and then we'll send you back a picture of you with a mustache on it or something.
Right, we have the technology
Yeah,
to
I'll
do
just
that.
Photoshop in mustaches on everyone.
Leonard's going to be drawing mustaches for days.
It's going to be fun. What are you talking about? I'm looking forward to it. Or they could send us the best aloha.
Oh.
I'd like to hear that.
If anybody sends us an aloha, if anybody is out there listening that sends us an aloha at Larry Beal ABC7, at Casey Pratt ABC7, I will send you back a bobblehead.
I think that's fair.
That's a fair deal.
That's fair.
Do it.
And with that, let us say aloha with authority.